With 8 kids and a home to take care of, there is a lot of work to do around here. But thankfully, it is a beautiful spring day. I have kids playing outside, a toddler and a baby taking their afternoon nap. So I'm going to use this lovely afternoon to bring all the things back together. Some meal prep, fridge cleaning, pantry cleaning, dishes, restocking the groceries, just getting this place in order and ready for another week. So let's do it together. Thank you, Thrive Market, for sponsoring today's video. More on them in a bit. Pretty much every weekend, whether I intend to do it or not, my kitchen shuts down in a sense. The starter isn't fed. I haven't started some new water kefir, milk kefir. Things just kind of go off the rails because we have a lot going on. So this last weekend, we did several things. We hosted our homeschool co-op party. Then I had over some friends on Saturday night. Sunday, we went to my parents' house. We were out most of the day that day. And then Monday was the eclipse. So we drove down to where the path of totality was. It wasn't right where we live, but we could get there within a couple hours. Now, I say a couple hours, but on the way home, it was a lot more than a couple hours because everybody drove there. And so there was a lot of traffic. It was worth it. It was totally awesome to see the moon completely blocking the sun. The very fact that the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but yet 400 times closer, so it blocks it, makes this beautiful ring, was awe-inspiring and pretty cool to witness. So with that being said, it is Tuesday, and I don't have a whole lot going on here in the kitchen. It's messy. It needs to be restocked. I need to make a whole bunch of things. So there's a lot that I need to do to get it back in order and be ready for this week ahead. First order of business is to do a little cleanup. We already had lunch for today. I fed the starter this morning so I can work on a few sourdough things this afternoon. I have some milk kefir that's been sitting on the counter for lots of days at this point. Little side tangent on the milk kefir. We have been making that for probably 13 years now, and I have never had to repurchase the milk kefir grains. So that long ago, I purchased them. They multiply over time whenever they're put in a quality milk. So for me, that's a locally sourced raw milk. We don't currently have milk here on the farm. I shared that in my podcast and a few videos back, but I get a lot of questions about that. So we are currently getting raw milk from a local farm. We've been doing raw milk for 15 years, and fermenting it with milk kefir grains is one of my favorite ways to preserve it, to make it last longer, and of course to feed our guts with healthy bacteria. Before I get into all my work this afternoon, I want to tell you about something that we love in our home to stock our pantry, and that is Thrive Market. Thrive Market is a membership-based online grocery store that specializes in natural and organic products. Things like my organic condiments, canned goods, seasonings, supplements, you name it, they have it. I live in a small town in Missouri, so there are a lot of things that I can't find locally, or if they are at the local grocery store, they are super expensive. Organic items that I like to stock, I can get for a really great price on Thrive Market. I love that on the Thrive Market website, you can sort by dietary preference. So if you are paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free, you can select to only see those options, which makes for a very easy, streamlined, simple shopping experience. I get the same things over and over again on Thrive Market, so it's very fast and easy for us to order. And the best part is orders over $49 ship free. Today, I'm restocking my basement pantry with some of our favorite snacks from Thrive Market as well. We have days, especially in the spring and summer, where we are out and about, and if I have sourdough bread made, a few meats and cheeses in the fridge, and then some chips made in quality oils like these avocado oil chips from Thrive Market, we can pack up a lunch very quickly anytime. And so I love being stocked with those types of things. You can pay yearly, $59.95. This will give you access to all of the great prices on Thrive Market for the year. Thrive Market is offering Farmhouse on Boom viewers 30% off your first order plus a free gift worth up to $60 by using my link, thrivemarket.com/Farmhouse on Boom. It'll also be linked in the description box below. What I love about milk kefir is it's so easy. So you take the grains, put it in the milk, let it sit out, and it thickens. It doesn't need a particular temperature. It'll just go more slowly if it's cold and fast if it is warm. So you really, you can't mess it up. You just put the milk kefir grains in there, let it sit till it's your desired thickness. Now at first, it'll probably be too sour for you if you let it go any longer than 12 to 24 hours. We let it go so long now, and we can all tolerate it just fine. Our guts are used to it. We like the taste. We blend it with frozen fruit like bananas, blackberries, strawberries, a little honey. I also put a greens powder in mine as well as a scoop of protein powder. This is what I've been having for breakfast every single morning. It's weird because I did that for so many years, just have a smoothie for breakfast. And for a while, I started hearing things about needing to have like a more well-rounded breakfast, like eggs and, sourdough toast and all this stuff. And for so many years, I just drank my kefir smoothie for breakfast. And lately, I've been having like a little bit of some stomach issues, nothing major at all, but just I noticed that I just wasn't feeling quite right. And then I remembered my beloved smoothies, that I'd never had this issue before when I started my day with probiotics, with just some basic protein. I don't know, it could all be in my head, but I feel like this is just what works best for my body. And it's funny how that is with all of us. We all have certain things that make us feel good or bad, even if other people have the exact opposite response. For me, at least for right now in my current season of life, which is I'm nursing a 9-month-old, I'm not pregnant. This is just what seems to be working best for my metabolism, for my digestive system at this current time. Another thing I need to do today, which I just put in the Instant Pot, some milk, is make some yogurt. We got milk a little over a week ago with the farm that we're currently going with. It's not a set night per week. We just meet up whenever we can. So it was 8 days ago that we got milk. We have a little bit left over because we are out of the house. We didn't get to it all. And the best way to preserve milk is to ferment it, whether that's yogurt or kefir. So I already got some kefir going, and now I'm going to get some yogurt going so that we can use the rest of that up before it goes fully sour. So I'm just heating it up in the Instant Pot on the saute function, and then I'll let it cool until it's about 110, 120 degrees. I just go by feel and add the starter culture and then let it ferment for about 8 to 10 hours or something like that. The thing about yogurt is you can make raw milk yogurt, but with all of the bacteria that is present in the milk, they compete with the starter culture of the yogurt. So you end up with a lot thinner of a product because the yogurt culture can't fully take off. So it's still a very healthy product. It's still very good, but I wanted something thick. I didn't want to add additional gelatin, which you can also do. So I just went ahead and pasteurized that milk and then gave the yogurt starter culture an environment in which it could thrive and become thick and do its work on the milk. Another thing I want to get going is sauerkraut. Lately, I have been doing smaller batches of sauerkraut instead of getting like 20 heads of cabbage, making a whole bunch. I've just been making enough that we have it on hand for each meal. And then whenever we're about to run out, I get 3 or 4 heads of cabbage and do another round. This will make about 2 half-gallon jars, so a gallon of sauerkraut, which is a very manageable amount for our refrigerator, for our storage situation. What I do is 1 tablespoon of salt per head of cabbage. I like to cut it by hand. It has a better texture to me than the really tiny cuts that happen with a food processor. And then I let it sweat out until it makes its own brine. So I massage the salt into the cabbage and then just let it sit while I get some other tasks done around the house. This will make it really juicy so I can submerge it below the brine. And that's all fermenting vegetables really is. You get vegetables in a saltwater brine, submerge them, and let the room temperature do its magic. So basically, the salt will inhibit the bad bacteria from growing. The good bacteria that is present will ferment in the cabbage, and that's essentially it. And we enjoy this so often. Again, it's good for our guts. Recently, I was at my sister's house, and she made a really simple lunch of egg salad, sourdough, and she had pickled onions. So delicious. And I made these, I think it was in a video maybe last year. I was on a kick of making these and then I forgot all about them. Then I was at my sister's house, had them again and remembered how delicious they are. Now again, just like the sauerkraut, instead of adding vinegar and water and sugar and salt to these, you can just add a saltwater brine and ferment the onions. I just wanted them exactly how she made them the other day because they were so tasty. So I'm not fermenting them. I am doing equal parts vinegar and water, sugar and salt. So I think precisely what I did was 3 cups vinegar, 3 cups water, half a cup of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of salt. I'm going to stir that up, get it nice and hot so it all dissolves, let it cool again, and then pour it over the onions. Now, periodically, I need to stir up my yogurt because it's not yogurt yet, the hot milk, because it's so hot, this will cool it down before I can add in my yogurt culture. You don't want to add yogurt culture to hot milk or it will kill it. So again, I'm just going to let that sit there until it cools. I'm going to let my onions sit there until the vinegar mixture cools. I have a lot of things going on in this kitchen, but by the time this afternoon's up, they will all be done and ready for us to enjoy throughout this week. Normally at the start of a week, I have no meat thawed out, and that's one of the first tasks is to get a whole bunch of meat in my 9x13 pan in the fridge so that we have meat from which to base meals throughout the week. This is a little bit different because before the weekend, I put a bunch of meat in there because I knew we were having various events here. One of the things was my friends came over for tacos, and I made a whole bunch of pulled pork. And I had also intended to brown up some ground beef. But once I saw how much pulled pork I had, I realized we really didn't need the beef. So I have 4 pounds of thawed out ground beef that needs to be made into something before I put any more meat in the fridge because it's already been thawing in there for, I want to say, like 4 or 5 days. So it's time to cook it and use it. I think a pound of it might be some deer meat. The other 3 I think are all beef. We're getting to the end of our freezer. I just ordered half a cow from my sister, so we will be restocking very soon, which means I need to get through absolutely everything. The other day my oven was on. I forget what I was doing, but I had some bread bits and pieces throughout my fridge, and I cubed them all up, put them on a sheet pan, and put it in the oven with whatever else I was making. That sort of made like a crouton, but then I put them into the blender, as you saw here, and made them into breadcrumbs. I keep these on hand at all times. It's really nice at the end of the week if you have a bunch of random leftover sourdough stuff, like maybe 1 bagel or 1 biscuit, a roll. Save all that stuff. Hamburger buns. There's so many different various sourdough things that I make, and sometimes there'll be 1 left over, or maybe a kid will eat half of one. Put it all in a Ziploc or whatever. And then at some point, whenever your oven's on, toast them on a sheet pan, blend it up. It makes the most delicious sourdough breadcrumbs that you can use to fry stuff. So I fry pork chops, fried chicken, put them in meatloaf, pasta dishes, just anything that you would use breadcrumbs for. I love having them on hand. So my meatloaf, I just do 4 pounds of meat, a bunch of breadcrumbs, some ketchup, some garlic powder, salt, shape that into a massive loaf and get it in the oven and bake it for, I don't know how long, just till it's done. Well, halfway through, I'll get it out and put on some ketchup and brown sugar. In the pantry, I have a whole bunch of bananas. I buy bananas like we have a family of monkeys, I guess. Whenever they are ripe, I put them in Ziplocs and freeze them. So this is really good for smoothies. Also, my toddler really loves bananas. I've been trying to buy more fruit lately. Sometimes I realize I get out of the habit of buying a lot of fruit, but my family really likes it when we have it. So trying to get back in the habit of that. Luke has been really enjoying grapefruit. And now I need to get some water kefir going here. I have a couple of half drink bottles in the refrigerator. I'm going to combine those so I can have plenty of jars left over here to make more bottles of this. The half-gallon jars is already fermented, so it is water kefir grains with sugar water. I do about a half a cup of sugar per half gallon. It's been sitting in there for lots of days at this point, but it just gets more sour, it gets more fermented, and now I'm going to put it into its second ferment. So I'm going to take that already fermented water kefir and then put it into these airtight bottles with some grape juice. I think some of these have cherry juice, just whatever juice I have. I mostly do grape juice. and the fermented water kefir and let it sit in my pantry until these tops have a lot of gas and carbonation built up. So that's how we do it. I don't really have amount of time because it really depends on the temperature. But throughout the next couple of days, I will go in there and I will open the top and see if I get a big pop or a little pop. I have instructed the kids to not do this, not only because they can be quite explosive, but also it can be a mess. So a kid just without caution, flips the top up. And if it has over fermented at that point, it could fly everywhere. So I tried to do that myself. And if I'm opening it really slowly and I can feel that it's going to have a lot of pressure, I will put it in the refrigerator. That will mellow it out. Otherwise, if you try to open it in that state, it'll fly everywhere. You'll waste all of your delicious water kefir. So put it in the fridge, mellow it out, and then you can open it. That's how water kefir works. It is really so easy. I had water kefir grains years ago, and then I ended up feeling like it was just too many things fermenting on my countertops. Like it felt overwhelming. But now that I'm so comfortable with all the things, I don't really have to think about instructions or time. I know how they smell, how they taste, how they feel, and I don't have to set timers and worry about each thing. It feels very easy and natural to incorporate in the water kefir. It has not always been that way for me. It has taken some time to adjust to each new ferment, to know what I'm doing, to know what to look for. So I encourage you, if you are wanting to start fermenting things, to just try one thing at a time, get really familiar and comfortable with it. So that's one thing too, is you'll get comfortable with knowing that this is okay, this is safe, this is delicious. Whereas at first it might feel so foreign that you might be even afraid to eat some of the ferments that you've made. So over time, you'll get used to it. I have been fermenting for, 15 years now. And so many of these things have become second nature. Now, one thing with sauerkraut is you want the jars to be completely full, because if there's any headspace, some oxygen can get in there, and that's where you'll have mold. So I don't quite have enough cabbage to make another half-gallon jar. So I put it in this little pint jar, and there was quite a bit of space. So I just made a little saltwater brine with salt and water and poured that over top. Otherwise, the cabbage makes its own brine, but I didn't want to leave half a jar and leave all that space for oxygen. So that's why I poured in that salt water there. I'm topping off the water kefir grains with some more sugar water. This time I did brown sugar. That really helps the grains to grow more quickly. I've been splitting them off and giving them to my sisters, and so I am encouraging their growth. Milk kefir grains, they also multiply. I did give some to my youngest sister recently, and I need to grow them back up. So that's why I only have about a quart of milk kefir fermenting right now. Probably within 3 or 4 days, I'll be back up doing my half gallon of milk. Now, if it's not enough grains to milk, it just will take longer to ferment, but it still will ferment. So ideally, I like to ferment half a gallon at a time. They reproduce so much faster in the summer. So soon here, I'm probably going to have more milk kefir grains and water kefir grains than I know what to do with, but I can give them to the chickens, put them in the compost. It's all good there. I did want to mention, while I'm talking about my youngest sister, she made the pickled onions. I gave her some grains. She started a YouTube channel, and you guys are going to love it, to the point where I'm afraid that you just won't watch mine anymore. No, I'm just kidding. She's 11 years younger than me. So she has a homemaking channel kind of like mine, but with a very fresh spin on it. Very colorful, very beautiful. I feel like she's just very good at making the videos. So her YouTube channel is called Our Sweet Sunny Days. I know that you all are going to absolutely love it. I had to purchase some yogurt because I didn't have any yogurt starter. So I just got one little container of plain Greek yogurt. Whenever our grocery order came, Luke said, uh-oh, they put something in from somebody else's order, because I know you didn't order one little container of yogurt. And I said, I actually did. That's my starter. So nobody get into it. I need that. That'll make some really nice thick yogurt. I'm also going to get some mayo going. We keep this in our refrigerator almost at all times. I'd say more often in the spring, especially whenever fresh greens are available, because I'll take some of the mayo and set it aside for easy on-the-go sandwiches, and then I'll do the rest into honey mustard. So I do about equal parts of mayo and honey, and then I'd say maybe a half part of mustard, and add in some lemon juice, some salt. This makes the best honey mustard. It's my go-to dressing. I could really, play around. There are so many delicious dressing recipes online. There's lots that I've tried, but this is just an easy one that I know how to do without even thinking about it. It's good. Everybody in my family loves it, and I can just keep it in this little jar with my homemade mayo. I love having this all stocked up in the fridge. It makes me feel like, okay, we have options for the week ahead. We are meeting with the farm tonight that we're getting milk from. So I'm cleaning out the fridge, making sure we're using up all the things that are going to go bad, and be ready for a complete restock, ready for this week. We also found some morel mushrooms. A couple were right in our front landscaping, which is so random because we've lived here for 5 years. We've never seen them on our front landscaping. We've seen them other places, but never there. And of course, I harvested them, and I'm going to saute them in butter so that I can set them aside before they dry out. My afternoon of prep without kids has long since come to an end, but that's okay. I can still get things done with the children underfoot. No afternoon of prep is ever complete without getting some sourdough bread going. So I had my starter fed this morning, and now I'm whipping up a batch of the No Knead Artisan Loaf, which is over on farmhouseonboone.com. I always do half all-purpose, half whole grain wheat, or half bread flour, half whole grain wheat. So it's more of a whole grain wheat than what I show on the blog, but same instructions. I'm gonna jar up my yogurt, and this is what the fridge looks like after restocking with some fresh milk. I have bone broth, I have salad dressing, meat thawing, bread rising in the fridge, some water kefir done. We are ready to go for this week. One thing I like to do is take inventory when I clean out the fridge of what I have and think about what meals I can make to use up the things that need to be used up. Something I made last week was bone broth. And I also had some steaks thawing in the refrigerator, another good intention before the weekend that didn't end up becoming realized. So normally Luke and I have an in-home date night, and I'll set out some steaks, but we didn't end up doing that because we had so many other plans that I kind of forgot about. So I'm going to use these steaks today, cook those in some butter, and make a risotto. In fact, we already made the risotto, and we spent all morning doing it. We started the risotto at maybe 8 a.m. We sauteed an onion in some tallow. I had tallow on top of the bone broth, very nice thick tallow that I just set aside as a nice cooking fat. So I sauteed my onion, I added the rice, and I let that toast up and cook for a while. So that whole process was probably an hour. I just let it cook very low and slow to give a nice caramelized onion, a nice toasty rice. I added in some dry white wine from Dry Farms Wine. Let that cook for a little bit, and then slowly all day added some hot broth, stirred it, just all throughout the morning makes this most creamy, delicious risotto. We also added fresh herbs, fresh Parmesan. It's the perfect meal to have simmering on the stove while you're helping kids with math and reading lessons. That's what we did all morning with the window open, beautiful smells, and the most delicious meal that uses up tons of bone broth. So perfect for my goal here of cooking all the meat, all the broth, all the things I need to use up before thawing out any new meat. You wouldn't believe it, but we almost ate every last bit of that steak. My kids love steak. I'm also going to make some sourdough pizza for this evening's meal to use up some sourdough starter before feeding it again, as well as use up those beautiful morel mushrooms. Well, we brought things back in order. I'm ready for this week, and I hope that I've inspired you to tackle the same in your own kitchen. As always, thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.